You're listening to DruidCast episode 218. Hello, my friends, and welcome to DruidCast episode 218. I am your host, Dave the Bard, and DruidCast is brought to you on or around the 20th of the month by the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. If you want to find out more about the Order and our courses, you can do that on our website, which is at druidry.org. What a fabulous opening to the show. That was Golden Cap with their song Magic from the album Communion. Thank you so much for sending that in, Ian, and remember that you can find links to all of the artists featured on DruidCast in the show notes. Our interview this month is with author Fiona Robertson, a self-confirmed ancient stone botherer and antiquarian enthusiast. Just like me, and I'm sure many of you too. We talk about her new book, Stonelands. Now, the book speaks on so many levels, but when I read it, it felt like a book about grief and finding healing through these ancient sites that inspire us Druids so much. So I knew I just had to get her on the show. So, my friends, grab that cuppa and enjoy this month's Talky Bit with Fiona Robertson.
The Talky Bit.
Welcome, Fiona, to DruidCast. It's lovely to see your face and to hear your voice. I've just finished your book, Stonelands. But before we get onto the book, because that's what I want to really talk to you about, but I think it's really nice to get to know the author first. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about Fiona and how you got interested in these stone circles, long barrows, these ancient sites, these enigmatic magical sites.
Hi, it's so lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. So, I guess my first love really was Avebury. I went there when I was about 18 and was just completely blown away by the landscape there, by the fact that there was this village in the middle of Wiltshire farmland surrounded by ancient stones. There were these avenues stretching out into the countryside. There was Silbury Hill, which to this day remains one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. So I kind of got interested in the stones then, and time passed. And meanwhile, I got a job at Watkins Publishing and became an editor there. So I started to commission books about standing stones and the like. And in particular, the real life-changing one for me was commissioning Andy Burnham and the Megalithic Portal team to write the Old Stones, because it was through that I realised that the sites that I knew about and had visited were only a fraction of what was out there, and that there were thousands or tens of thousands of these places all over Britain that had survived and were there, and that we could go out and find them. So at that point, I became a proper obsessive geek, megalith geek, and started, kind of ticking them off in a sort of slightly strange fashion.
Yeah. Avebury is remarkable. I mean, I remember my first visit there. I literally drove into the circle, don't you? You drive right into the middle of it. And
Really?
the size and scale of it. I mean, Stonehenge is obviously the one that everyone around the entire world knows.
Yeah.
But Avebury, there's something about it that is, to me, even more impressive in a different way. But it's not as well known either, considering it's the largest stone circle in Europe. It's just not as well known, and the whole landscape of like you say, Silbury Hill. What is that all about?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I really find fascinating about Avebury is what survives today is only a fraction of what was once there. And you get a sense of what was there by going back to the early antiquarians like John Aubrey and William Stukeley, and you see their plans. And you know that, for example, there was this huge stone called the obelisk that was like 7 or 8 meters high. I can't remember exactly how high it was, but it was a whopper of a stone, basically, which is now completely gone. The whole monuments, like the sanctuary, now survive only as concrete and timber pillars, but the avenue once extended all the way up to the sanctuary. So yeah, it's like what was there is incredible, and I would love to go back in time to about 2000 BC and see it in its completed form and just see what people were doing there and to know what was Silbury Hill used for? Who knows?
And one of the things that shocked me is the idea that the ramparts of Avebury, the kind of henge area, the ditch, would have been pure white chalk. And so approaching it, if you were approaching it from above, it would have looked like a great big polo mint on the ground almost,
Yes.
you know, with these circles inside. Oh yeah, I would have loved to have visited and just know what went on at these places, you know.
And that ditch would have been incredibly steep
Mm,
and very deep. So, what was its purpose? Was it keeping energy in? Was it keeping people out? Was it meant to repel? And if so, what was it repelling? Yeah, it's all fascinating.
yeah. And all created with nothing more than antlers as picks.
Exactly. And
That in
stones,
itself
yeah.
is unbelievable. I wonder, I wonder if, and this is a silly thought that's come into this Geminian brain, but I wonder if they had wheelbarrows or the equivalent of a wheelbarrow to move the soil around, you know?
Well, I don't off the top of my head know when the wheel was invented,
Yeah.
but I think they would have had maybe rolling timbers
Yes.
to
Yeah.
transport things around. The mind boggles,
It
basically.
really does. It really does. So your book, Stonelands, is a very, very personal journey through your experiences of me and my mate. We used to call it henge hunting, which is we used to do it ourselves. And you just head off into the moors with
Yeah.
an OS map and some rough idea of where it is, and then just see if you can find this stone circle that is just marked on a map by this
I th
tiny little dot.
I think it must have been even more fun back in the days um, before GPS. And
Oh,
so now I can look at the megalithic portal app and I can see myself as a blue dot and I can see the stones marked. And even then, I kind of managed to mess it up a bit and wander off in the wrong direction. And it takes a while for the blue dot to register which way I'm going. But
absolutely.
back in the days when Julian Cope describes in The Modern Antiquarian of finding some of these places, like particularly the sites in Ireland, in his megalithic European, it's like it was such hard work, and the stones fails were even more common then than they are now.
Yeah, yeah. I just so you know, background of myself as well. My interest in this is I used to be okay. Looking at me, you might not believe this, but I used to be a sales rep on the road. Yeah, and
I
I
wasn't expecting you to say a sales rep.
yeah. So I used to be a sales manager, sales representative on the road, company car, heading out to my customers. And I had the western side of the country to deal with. That was my territory. So Cornwall, Devon, Wales,
Oh, great.
Scotland.
Perfect.
That was my territory. And so I used to grab, it was the Ordnance Survey map of ancient Britain. It was,
Oh, yeah.
and I used to see where there was a sacred site or one of these ancient sites. And then I would literally, my boss never knew this, but I would literally plan my route of the day's calls to end up at a B&B close to one of these sacred sites, wherever that may be.
Brilliant.
And sometimes I'd take my mate Matt on the road with me and we would go on a henge hunt. And we literally would, like you say, he would have his compass,
Yeah.
have the OS map, and we'd just head off into the moor to try and find
Fantastic.
this little tumuli that was marked on there, sort of thing. And I mean, all of us finding these sites was always down to Matt, to be honest with you. I would have just completely, he just had some kind of connection with, he must have been a cub or a scout or something
Yeah.
like that, you know. So your book is it's a very personal journey about your hunting and visiting these sacred sites. What was the inspiration that made that idea turn into your fingers hitting a keyboard and creating a book like that, Stonelands?
Well, there were a few things coming together. So I'd been thinking for ages about writing a book, but I thought I was going to write a novel. I've been trying and failing for, maybe 20 years to write this wretched novel that I never managed to finish. But I'd still like to do that one day. That's kind of my next ambition. But yeah, I wanted to write. I had it in mind that I needed to write. And then my husband was diagnosed with a very serious illness, and that kind of completely turned my world upside down. And I sort of felt like I needed more than ever to have something to do that would kind of distract me from all of this. So, and I knew that was going to be writing. And at the same time, it was our sort of big hobby going to these stone sites. And I was visiting ever more of them. And I was simultaneously, I think I'd done this talk at Stone Club about my favourite stone sites. And I got this idea into my head that you could characterize the different stone sites by their qualities. And then because I worked in Mind, Body, Spirit publishing, I was used to structuring a book around themes. And I'd never seen a book about standing stones that was themed. So all of these things came together. And then as my husband was kind of getting more and more sick and I was getting more and more worried, I was finding the stones really inspiring because they've been there, they seem to speak to me of survival and the idea that, like a stone, we can endure terrible times in our lives. I was thinking about these stones that had been standing. Many of them had fallen and been erected again, but many of them had never fallen. So they'd been there for like 4,000 or 5,000 years, standing through sunlight, through the rain, through the wind, as the world changed around them, they were still there. And so I was thinking about myself and my own life, my life changing around me and having this terrible storm to go through. So all of this came together and resulted in Stonelands.
Wow. Considering that the kind of inspiration to write the book was sadness in a way and loss.
Yeah.
I've found it a really uplifting read.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you did.
Yeah, and it was things like that really brought your journey to life. And I felt, although Stephen, your husband, was the catalyst behind writing this, I fairly recently lost both my parents. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
And your words of the connection and the seeing of these almost immortal beings of stone.
Yeah.
And the way that their memory remains, there's something about them remains, really touched me, really, really touched me. So, if that was your intent, it worked.
It's so special to me that I have touched people in that way because yes, sometimes I get messages on Instagram from people that I don't know who share that they've been bereaved or they've gone through some really difficult time in their lives and that my book has touched them, and that I just find that incredibly moving. And actually, I find the stones themselves moving in that way because we don't know why they were raised. They could have been raised to commemorate people. In the book, I interview an archaeologist called Rebecca Lambert, and she talks about the idea of stone rows as being constructed year after year by possibly people raising stones to different members of the family group. So they were almost like a family tree, extending out into the moor. And I feel like people live and they die, and people live and they want to make their mark on the earth, and then they die and they fade away, and the memory of what they've done has faded away. But somehow, in these stones, all of those different memories of people who have lived and the things that they've done, they're somehow still there, and we can touch them. We can. It's almost like we can touch the ancient past, but we can also touch all of history that's gone through from then to us.
Yeah.
And you think about all the people that will have gone to these sites for different purposes. We know that somewhere like Stonehenge attracted people to come there and bury their dead there in the Bronze Age. And then people have told stories about these places. And obviously, at times in history, these sites have been almost ignored, but there is a kind of continuity through history. And it's a way we can touch the past. So I find all of this really moving and really inspiring. And just to go back to the sadness a bit, well, there's a lot of sadness in the book, but I wanted it to be about joy as well. And so, because Stephen and the kids and I had just the best times going around these places. So, um,
Yeah.
I think there's sort of there's joy there too, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you definitely get that from reading the book as well. It's a very, like I say, an uplifting read as well as one of quite a challenging read in some places as well.
Thank you.
One of the things I love was when I go to one of these sites, let's just say Maryvale, for instance,
Yes,
on
lovely.
Dartmoor, which is just such an incredible complex of stone rows, of kists, of a stone circle. And I sit in that stone circle, and of course, you look out and you see the road, and the road is there, and the car park in the distance, and the ship,
Yeah.
and all this kind of thing. And I think, if I remember rightly, there's like almost like a mobile phone mast pretty close to it now, I think, as well.
Yes.
And have you ever seen the Detectorists?
Yes, I love the detectors.
Okay, so there's a moment in the Detectorists where they they're finding a flute, I think it is,
Hmm.
and the Unthanks, a band called the Unthanks, start to play a cover of the song "The Magpie."
Right.
And at that moment, the leaves start to change and the banks start to move away and the hedgerows disappear and all of the landscape changes all around them. And you see this burial happening back in the ironworks,
Yeah.
I guess it is, of putting this urn into the ground.
Yes.
And then it moves forward and forward and forward. And then suddenly the in time as the landscape changes, and then the farmer just drives past ploughing the land and breaks up the cairn underneath or the little urn underneath. And when I visited places like these stone circles now, I try and do that in my mind.
Yes.
That was such an inspiring part of the show that I try and sit there and just take away the road, take away the mast.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you get back not so far away that these stones would have known a world before the combustion engine.
Yeah.
They would have known a world so much more quiet that the only way to move around the land would have been by horse or
Mm.
cart. And then before that, even before that, and it would have seen people with tricorn hats talking in very different language to my own, or a root of English that I barely would even recognize.
Yeah.
And these stones have witnessed all of that. And that's one of the things that I find utterly inspiring about these. But they're also, you go there and you might find a flower
Mm.
just rested there as an offering. So even now, it may be a very different use that we're putting these things to, but they have real meaning even to this day.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love yes, that bit in the Detectorist was amazing. I think it made me cry actually
Yes,
when
me
I
too.
watched it. I don't, I'm always sort of mortifying my children with these moments of emotion of when you I don't know what is it? Can we sort of pin down what it is that's just so moving? It's I guess it's maybe the idea of sort of seeing something bigger than our individual lives and the being part of history and the kind of amazingness of being alive and the fact yeah, I don't know what it is, but yes, I also try to almost fall down. I think of it as kind of falling down into the abyss of time and just seeing where I land up when I'm there. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and looking, trying to sort of get a sense of what people would have felt in those ancient times coming to the stones. And obviously, the landscape would have looked very different. They wouldn't have had hedgerows and fields and but there would have been sheep there and what would people have been doing that's the same as what we do now? Would they have been laughing and joking in the same way. And
Yeah.
yeah, I suspect they would have been. Um, and having their sort of silly feuds and getting caught up in, yeah, all the things that we get caught up in now that actually, in the great perspective, seem so relevant. But I'm
Yeah.
rambling a
My
bit now.
questions to you is why do you think that people from all walks of life go to these places? Me and Kerry regularly visit Wayland Smithy, and there are people. These aren't pagans. They're not druids. They're not Wiccans. They're regular kind of folk bringing their families for a picnic
Yeah.
by a tomb. I mean,
Yes.
what a strange thing to. But somehow we're attracted to it, aren't we? What do you think that is? We've touched on it a little bit here. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think there is so much about modern life that is prosaic and boring. Um, People's jobs are often so dull now, and you've got to spend so much time thinking about, doing self-appraisals and um, and admin and having meetings. And so, where is the enchantment in life? In many ways, we've become this kind of quite secular society, and yet here in the landscape are these ancient places that we don't really know some that we can't say because they were created at a time before the written word. There's not much that can be said about them for sure. So they're places that attract magical theories, and even archaeologists' theories can be pretty mind blowing and magical.
Mm.
Um, and they're the great scientists of these places. So essentially, they're sources of enchantment in the landscape, and there's not much else that's like that. So, and they're also people find them spiritual, and people are moving away from organized religion, but they still need a sense in their lives that there's something more than this, there's something more than the daily grind and the disappointments and the losses and all the rest of it. So,
Mm.
standing stones are not they haven't been co-opted by any particular group. Standing stones are for everyone. So for
Mm.
all these reasons, I think we're
Yeah.
drawn to them.
I love the idea of re-enchantment. Um, I
Me
think
too.
that's a really important thing in this day and age. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with my music, but all of my music, all my songs are about re-enchanting the land. I've written so many songs
Oh,
about stone circles. It's crazy. Um,
wonderful.
and um, and I think that's why a lot of people are looking to things like Druidry and earth-centered spiritual paths.
Yeah.
They're non-prescriptive and they are open to interpretation and to personal experience. And I think, one of the things that I've noticed with people who go to these sites, for me, it's almost like I look at there and I feel continuity. I feel
Mm.
a connection to such a deep and distant past that that existed that was. I mean, I don't know. No one knows quite what it was like, but it feels like it would have been far more animistic, far more,
Yes,
far more in connection with the seasons because life depended on them, and we
exactly.
know this to be true because of these sites being aligned to things like the winter solstice.
Yes,
Yeah.
precisely. I'm 100% sure you're right. So ancient sites, and so many of them are aligned to the solstice, do seem to remind us of that kind of connection to nature that modern society has moved away from.
Yeah.
And again, that's a really inclusive thing because anyone, whatever your beliefs, can also feel that we need to be more connected to the earth and we need to look after the earth. And it's a beautiful thing to watch the sunrise at one of the solstices. And I've started going because it's quite hard for me to leave my kids at either of the solstices. So one of them because it's very close to Christmas, and the other one because it's still in term time. So I've started going to my local stone circle in South London, which is it's not ancient. It's the Brockley Millennium Circle,
Mm.
and I just love that. Even Londoners, we're kind of a cynical bunch, really, but people will just wander up there at the winter solstice and watch the sunrise. And it just feels so, it just feels like we're part of something that stretches back for all these millennia. And it's something that people are turning to increasingly now.
Yeah, yeah. And we noticed that too. I won't personally head off to Stonehenge. It's too busy for me. I
Mm,
like a bit of peace and quiet when I greet the sun. I'm not really into the crowds of
yeah.
Stonehenge. We go up to a place called Devil's Dyke here. It's close to Brighton where I live, and
Oh, great.
it's a bit like Avebury in as much as it's an old Iron Age hill fort with a pub put in the middle of it. It was a hugely popular site during Victorian times, and there's a stone bench, a stone chair up there that we found absolutely aligns to the summer solstice sunrise.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
yeah, it's incredible. And we drum down the sun. I know I've just said I don't like noise, but we do drum down the sun quietly, of course. Um, and when you go there at the winter solstice sunset and the summer solstice sunrise, there are lots of people at this site, and it's something that it is something that is just so intrinsic of being human. I think of well, it's our star, isn't it? It's the thing that gives life to the earth.
Yeah,
It's the thing
yeah.
that draws all the food we eat is down to our relationship with this star. And so somewhere inside us, I think we know that to be true.
Mm,
Truth,
yeah.
capital T, that one. Yeah.
Yes. So it's a practical source of life,
Mm,
but also works wonderfully as a metaphor in its drawing away and coming back,
yeah.
and in the its relationship with the moon as well. It's yeah. How come? It's just so strange in a way that nature has given us the sun and the moon, these two metaphors that work really well with the idea of male and female, and then the diminishing and growing of the light, and then our own experiences of joy and darkness.
Yeah.
It just feels like and the idea of tides as well, tides running through our lives.
Mm,
Our very beings are intricately connected with nature, and somehow the stones are part of this too.
absolutely. Now, during the book, you never call yourself a pagan or anything like that. But reading through it, I'd say you definitely feel pagan adjacent. Let's put
I
it
am totally pagan adjacent.
that
Um, I'm really, really interested. I find it just so compelling. So it kind of, well, I mean, I've been ever since the sort of early or mid 90s, I've been interested in pagan topics, but I really started thinking about it when I edited Danu Forrest's The Magical Year. And I learnt about the eight Wheel of the Year festivals.
yeah.
So ever since then, I'm very, very interested, basically.
Because I remember reading that you felt the energy of Samhain during the book and of May Day as well, and I thought
Yes.
something more going on here. Because to me, the Wheel of the Year is one of the greatest gifts of the modern pagan traditions. We know that the way we celebrate it is quite modern,
Yeah.
and isn't ancient. Although the festivals on the wheel may be ancient, the way we celebrate those eight spokes probably isn't.
Yeah.
However, it's the way it ties in with the landscape, with these ancient sites, with the rising of the sun and the moon, and it just that re-enchantment that you talked about earlier is absolutely intrinsic in the Wheel of the Year and the turning, and also
Yes.
the idea of rebirth
Yeah.
every time. Yeah,
And also having a fun festival every 6 weeks or so. It just takes you through the year.
absolutely.
Um, I love the way, I mean, I've just become much more aware of the energy and character of each season.
Yeah,
And in a way that when I was younger, I didn't really, well, I just sort of was blindly going through it, not paying much attention. But to feel the change in the seasons is a delight in itself.
mm,
And I'm just feel so grateful that I live here in this place that has these and wonderfully varied seasons,
Yeah.
and not somewhere where it's the same, blinding sun day after day.
Although,
Much as I love and appreciate the sun.
yeah, I'm not a fan of autumn and I'm not a fan of winter. I'm a spring and summer baby myself, but there we are.
Well, I I used to love autumn when I was young, and now I find that melancholy and poignancy of autumn is just almost overwhelming.
Yeah.
And then knowing that the dark times are coming, and also my husband died at close to midwinter, so yeah, I mean, it's 3 years. It will be 3 years this December that he died. So it's still it's quite a difficult time for me
Yeah.
now, but I can still see the beauty in it.
The book is filled with joy as well. That's like I said, and so let's talk a bit more about your book, if that's all right, and sort
Of
of
course.
some of the kind of the experiences in there. Do you have any kind of favorite sites from your journey of writing the book and your journey with Stephen and the family?
So yeah, so my favourite landscape has got to be Avebury, first love, always will be. But my favourite stone circle is probably Boscawen down in Cornwall, which I just find an intensely magical place and very complete in the fact that it's got this one quartz stone in the ring, which is like a moonstone, and then it's got a leaning stone in the centre, which looks like the gnomon of a sundial. So that's a wonderful sight. And then Loch Buoy Stone Circle on the Isle of Mull is another one that's very special to me, partly because the first time we tried to go there, I was defeated by the bog.
Yeah.
And I felt so sort of irritated and humiliated by this that we then went back the next year, and we all navigated the bog together, and it was a big adventure. And it's just such a lovely circle with Ben Buoy rising behind and the golden eagles overhead. It's a really, really special place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Mull.
yeah, I mean, Callanish is another one that is very special to me.
Mm. On the
Yeah,
Isle of Lewis. Yeah.
yeah, really stunning sight with those great tall silvery megaliths aligned to the southernmost lunar standstill. So yeah, I mean, there's
Like, is there nothing else like Callanish? Really, the quality of the stone, anyway, is
exactly. It's if I had to pick a most beautiful type of rock, it's got to be Louisian gneiss.
yeah.
And the other thing about Callanish is you've got this main stone circle that everyone knows about, but I think there are 11 or 12 other known, I think it's 11 other known stone circles in the area, and probably more buried under the peat.
Mm.
So it's a real, some of these places, that people will have gone back and built their monuments there year after year, and they're kind of, yeah, it's a sort of mind-blowing megalithic landscape.
Yeah, and I loved your chapter on Orkney as well. That was amazing.
Oh, Orkney, wow,
Yeah.
God. How can I not mention Orkney? I mean, I went there quite recently, and I have to go back. So I went there at Easter time, was completely blown away by the main monuments there, by the Ring of Brodgar Stones of Stennis, Maze How, with its alignment to winter solstice. But I want to go back and explore the islands.
Mm.
Have you sort of ventured up there?
I've never got to Orkney. No, I did. The furthest I got was is it John O'Groats, the top peak.
Oh yeah.
I got there on one of my business trips. I'm doing quotation marks because really to me they were just about where I was going to end up on that day.
Yeah. I
But
think you should write a memoir about this.
oh,
Sort of megalithic adventures of a salesman or something, because
yes.
yeah, I love the fact that you were manipulating your work trips to visit as many stones as possible.
Oh, one of my favourite memories. We hunted down Hetty Pegler's Tump.
Mm,
I think it's got is it Ewley Barrow now? I think it's called, but then it was called Hetty Pegler's Tump,
right.
which is one
Great name.
in Gloucestershire, I think it was, and we found it, and I was in between business calls, so so I was wearing my suit, my tie,
Yeah.
And then and it was raining, so I put my wellies on, and you get to Hetty Pegler's Dump, and the entrance is quite low. You have to almost crawl through it. So there I was between business calls, wearing my suit, crawling into a long barrow,
Oh, brilliant.
lighting a match, trying to
Yeah.
find because we hadn't brought a torch with us. Looking around and then coming out and then driving off and sitting down and saying, anyway, I think our product would really interest.
I would love to have seen a film of that. Brilliant.
Yeah, it was very, very funny. Yeah. So there's, thank you. I've got one more thing to ask. Really, is like your book is a journey, a personal journey, and there seems to be a lot of a resurgence, if you like, of a memoir kind of journey book. Yourself doing that. Braided Sweetgrass is another one. Vesper Flights. I don't know if you've read that as well. It's a
Ooh,
beautiful book about a personal journey with falcons, and then there's yourself.
wonderful.
There's obviously the Salt Path. Well, that's not got a great deal of good publicity these days, but I did
It's
enjoy
sold a
reading
lot
it.
of copies, though.
I bet they have, and I did enjoy reading it. I was reading it while I was down in Cornwall recently, just a few stones throws away from the southwestern path, But there seems to be this, they're really popular. The memoir book and your kinds of book is. What do you think is the reason behind that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what is it about a memoir? I guess maybe it's harking back to that thing before of everyday life sometimes being a bit kind of prosaic. And I guess people want to hear stories of other people that have gone out and sort of got into some kind of weird hobby or something, or overcome challenges because it gives them ideas for things to do in their own lives. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's what it feels like to me when I've read these books. I used to read a lot of how-to books, obviously, when I first
Yeah.
got into paganism, how to do this, how to do that. Then I got into a lot of the archaeological books, like I was saying, Aubrey Burke,
Oh, yeah. Love Aubrey Bell.
stuff like that. And then there's mythological books exploring the Eddas and the Mabinogi. But more and more, I'm pulled towards reading other people's life experiences of things, and I find myself learning almost more from your books like yours than I do about sitting down and reading an Aubrey Burl academic study of stone circles, because there's
But
that personal human connection to it.
I think people are curious. Ultimately, that's a very human quality, curiosity. And they're curious about other people's lives. And they want to know, why did they do this? What were the reasons before it? What happened to them? And I love the quality of curiosity. So maybe that's what's behind it.
Think so. Well, I can thoroughly recommend your book Stonelands by Fiona Robertson to
Thank
everybody
you.
listening to this interview. It's been fantastic to talk to you.
So lovely to talk to you and meet a fellow megalith enthusiast.
Absolutely. So if people want to find out more about you, where do they go on the internet?
Well,
Where do you hang out?
so I'm on Instagram as Stonelands or Stone_lands. I can't remember. But anyway, if you search for Stonelands, you'll find me. And I'm also on Blue Sky and the dreaded Twitter stroke X.
Yeah.
But Instagram's the main place. And I've also got a website. So yeah, please get in touch because I love to hear from Stones fans.
Okay. Well, I will put all those links into the show notes of the episode. And other than that, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been lovely to, like you say, talk to a fellow megalithic enthusiast. I'm sure also the megalithic portal has had a number of additional downloads since, because I didn't know anything about that. I went straight onto the App Store and downloaded at the
Oh,
moment
great.
your books.
Well, it's called, so if you search for megalithic portal in the apps, you might not find it, but it's called Pocket Guide Megaliths.
Yes.
It's really great for identifying the ancient sites in your area, and I use it a lot and can thoroughly recommend it.
Well, I'm sure you're going to start bumping into even more people who have read your book and downloaded it. Thank you so much, Fiona. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I've had rosemary spread, fresh through oven-baked bread, but the sweetest thing still when I'm out of my head. And I'm draped in the presence that comes from within, and I no longer care if I end or begin, 'cause I'm here, tasting the honey that comes from my muscles when I move my body. They yearn for the hustle. I give what I can, play although I'm a man. But the sweetest thing still when I notice my hand as it writes on the paper, which comes from the land. The land tells me that my body's really a branch, and I'm grown from the earth, even though I'm not rooted, but really I am. It's just not wooden shoots. It's the ancestors speaking through thoughts that aren't mine, but they share 'cause they love me and live beyond time. And I've tasted the honey, I've tasted the shine, and I pray for you here from the base of my spine. And I yearn for connection, and what do I find? That this thing I've been searching for is here this whole time. Yes, it's here. Tasted the honey.
I thoroughly enjoyed Fiona's book, and what a pleasure to sit down and talk to a fellow stone botherer. I hope you enjoyed that too. After the interview, you heard Rosemary Honey Dawn from Alex McHugh and the group Activity. It followed the interview so well, and I just love the vibe of that song, so thank you for sending that in. But this music means, my friends, we are approaching the end of the show, but before I go, let's have the results of last month's competition. The prize was a wonderful book of poetry called I Write Because by poet Katie Victoria. Hello, Katie. And I have 2 copies to give away. The question I asked was, in the interview with Matt, I talked about when the Order once held retreats on a small island off the coast of Mull in Scotland, where St. Columba founded a monastery. What is the name of that island? Well, the answer is Iona, such a beautiful place. And the 2 names drawn from the hat this month are Nerys Mayhew from Worcester and Jeanette Dyke from Australia. Congratulations to the both of you. That prize will be with you very soon. Now, the prize this month, unsurprisingly, is a hardback copy of Fiona's wonderful book Stonelands. And the question I'd like you to answer is, Fiona's favourite sacred site is also Europe's largest stone circle. What is the name of that site? Fiona's favourite sacred site is also Europe's largest stone circle. What is the name of that site? Email your answer along with your full postal address to podcast@druidry.org, and one of you will win a copy of that amazing book. Well, my friends, that is a show. Have a magical equinox celebration, and I will see you back here for DruidCast episode 219 next month. But until then, I wish you all, as ever, peace and blessed be. Goodbye.